Tony Beets loses $750,000 in gold after wash plant failure. S16 E10 represents one of the most catastrophic and financially devastating moments in gold rush history, showcasing the brutal reality that even the most experienced and successful miners face when industrial-scale equipment fails at the worst possible moment. This episode captures a nightmare scenario that every placer miner fears: having gold literally within grasp, actively being processed through your wash plant, only to watch helplessly as a critical system failure causes $750,000 in precious metal to wash away downstream, potentially lost forever in the Yukon wilderness. The magnitude of this disaster cannot be overstated, as $750,000 in gold at current market prices represents approximately 375 ounces of pure gold, which translates to weeks or potentially months of backbreaking work by dozens of crew members operating massive excavators, bulldozers, and processing equipment around the clock in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. The wash plant stands as the absolute heart and soul of any industrial mining operation, serving as the critical piece of infrastructure where raw pay dirt, excavated from deep in the ground, gets transformed into concentrated gold through a complex series of mechanical and gravitational separation processes. Tony Beets operates some of the largest and most sophisticated wash plants in the Klondike region, industrial behemoths capable of processing hundreds of cubic yards of material per hour, representing multi-million-dollar investments in steel, pumps, screens, sluices, and processing technology. These massive machines work by using tremendous volumes of water to wash dirt through rotating trommels that break up clay and separate material by size, then channeling the slurry across carefully designed sluice boxes where gold, being significantly heavier than surrounding rock and sediment, settles into riffles and matting while lighter waste material continues downstream. When everything functions properly, this system efficiently captures gold with minimal losses. But when catastrophic failure strikes during active processing, the results can be financially devastating, as gold-laden material bypasses recovery systems entirely and disappears into tailings ponds or downstream waterways where recovery becomes virtually impossible. The timing of this disaster makes it exponentially worse than a failure occurring at the beginning or end of the mining season, because by episode 10 of season 16, operations would be in full swing during the most productive period of the brief Yukon mining season. Gold mining in Canada's far north operates under extreme time constraints, with the viable mining season typically lasting only 5 to 6 months from late spring through early fall before winter temperatures plunge in frozen ground makes excavation impossible. By mid-season, miners like Tony have already invested enormous sums in mobilizing equipment, hiring and housing crew members, stripping overburden to reach pay layers, and establishing the complex infrastructure required for industrial-scale operations. A $750,000 loss at this critical juncture doesn't just represent lost gold. It threatens the financial viability of the entire season's operation, potentially turning what should have been a profitable year into a devastating loss that could take years to recover from financially. The pressure becomes immense because every single day lost to equipment, repair, and troubleshooting represents irreplaceable lost opportunity during the compressed mining window, and the decision matrix becomes incredibly complex. Does Tony attempt to recover the lost gold through time-consuming and expensive remedial operations? Does he focus exclusively on getting the wash plant operational again as quickly as possible? Can he afford the downtime, or does he need to implement emergency backup processing solutions? The specific technical failure that caused this catastrophic loss likely involved a combination of factors that created a perfect storm of gold loss, possibly including structural failures where critical components like screen panels, Sluice sections or recovery riffles broke or became dislodged during operation, allowing gold-bearing material to flow through the system without adequate opportunity for gravitational separation and capture. Wash plant failures can stem from metal fatigue in high-stress components that finally give way after processing millions of yards of abrasive, rocky material. From water management problems where pumps fail or water lines rupture, causing improper flow rates that prevent effective gold recovery. From human error where operational parameters weren't properly monitored or adjusted for changing material characteristics, or from design limitations where the plant simply couldn't handle the volume or characteristics of material being processed. Given that Tony operates at massive industrial scale and pushes equipment to maximum capacity to maximize production during the limited season, his wash plants endure tremendous stress and wear, making catastrophic failures an ever-present risk despite rigorous maintenance protocols and experienced operational crews. The financial impact extends far beyond the immediate $750,000 in lost gold, cascading into multiple additional cost categories that could easily push the total economic damage past the $1 million mark when fully accounted for. Major wash plant components like trommels, screens, pumps, and structural steel sections can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace. And specialized mining equipment often requires custom fabrication or long-distance shipping to remote Yukon locations, adding both time delays and transportation costs. Every day the wash plant sits idle represents lost production opportunity that can never be recovered during the finite mining season. With daily production potential for operations of Tony's scale easily reaching $50,000 to $100,000 or more in gold value, crew members still require payment regardless of whether the plant is running. And Tony employs large teams of heavy equipment operators, mechanics, laborers, and support personnel whose wages continue accumulating even during crisis situations. Heavy equipment like excavators and bulldozers sitting idle still represent significant daily costs in terms of lease payments, insurance, and depreciation, while fuel contracts, land lease obligations, regulatory fees, and other fixed costs continue regardless of production status. This episode showcases Tony Beets facing perhaps the most severe operational crisis of Season 16, testing his legendary reputation for toughness, problem-solving ability, and refusal to accept defeat even when confronted with seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Throughout Gold Rush history, Tony has built his reputation on an almost superhuman ability to overcome disasters that would bankrupt lesser operations, approaching catastrophic problems with a combination of decades of technical expertise, willingness to make bold financial decisions, hands-on leadership where he works alongside his crew in the trenches rather than managing from a distance, and an absolutely uncompromising determination to succeed regardless of setbacks. This wash plant failure likely captures Tony at his most intense and focused, immediately shifting into crisis management mode where he personally evaluates the technical damage, calculates financial implications and available options, makes rapid decisions about repair strategies and resource allocation, potentially improvises creative solutions using available materials and equipment, and rallies his crew with the forceful leadership style that has made him both feared and respected throughout the mining community. The competitive dynamics of Gold Rush Season 16 make this disaster even more significant, because the show thrives on rivalry between different mining operations, and a $750,000 setback fundamentally changes Tony's position relative to other miners competing for seasonal production supremacy. Competitors would suddenly find themselves with significant advantages in the race for gold, having avoided similar catastrophic failures and maintained consistent production while Tony's operation sits paralyzed. The dramatic tension becomes whether Tony can engineer a remarkable comeback, whether this failure triggers additional cascading problems that further compound the crisis, whether he has adequate financial reserves and contingency planning to absorb this magnitude of loss and continue operations, or whether this represents a turning point where the season's goals become unattainable and damage control becomes the primary objective. The episode likely serves as a pivotal moment that influences storylines and competitive dynamics throughout the remainder of Season 16, with Tony's recovery efforts and the ultimate outcome affecting the trajectory of multiple subsequent episodes, beyond the financial calculations and competitive implications. This disaster carries profound human costs that affect everyone involved in Tony's mining operation, from family members who work in key leadership roles to longtime crew members whose livelihoods depend on successful mining seasons. The stress and disappointment following such a massive loss permeates the entire organization, testing relationships, challenging morale, and forcing difficult conversations about whether continued operations make financial sense or whether cutting losses might be the prudent decision. For viewers, this human element transforms the episode from simply a story about broken equipment and lost gold into a compelling drama about resilience, determination, and the psychological toll of high-stakes industrial operations where single failures can wipe out months of progress in moments. This episode ultimately delivers the authentic high-stakes drama that makes Gold Rush compelling television, reminding audiences that gold mining remains one of the most challenging, unpredictable, and financially risky industries on Earth, where success requires not just technical expertise and expensive equipment, but also mental toughness, adaptability, and the ability to continue fighting even when faced with devastating setbacks that would cause most people to abandon their dreams entirely.